40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
The Pokerstars Rally would be the final event on the Isle of Man rally calendar. Now notorious for wet conditions expected on the event in November, and this weekend certainly wasn't looking any different. Tristan Pye leads the entry list this weekend in the absence of Daniel Harper. Paul McKinnon makes another trip over to the island after a good result here last year, and Andrew Dudgeon leads the local drivers away from Derby this evening in car 3. 3 stages lay in wait for the crews on the Friday evening, due to be run twice, but a last-minute call to only run a single loop was made due to the terrible conditions, a decision that would be welcomed by all at the end of the night. On to the stages then, and already the event would be throwing out some rather unusual results to match the unusual conditions. Kevin Davies and Dylan Jenkins emerged from the waterlogged first day with the lead of the event. Road rally experience back in Wales playing right into their hands. For Jamie Jukes and James Morgan, it would be second. Jamie always going well here, but not always managing to keep that result to the end. Second place though, after a very tough opening day, was a good start. Tristan Pye and Andrew Falconer make a good start to the day too. They get through the stages with third. Obviously a little cautious through the wet conditions and ready to make a push on day 2. Wayne Sisson and Patrick Walsh come to the Isle of Man this weekend after a great season in the MSA Asphalt Championship. Things are going well so far, with 4th place overall. Just behind Sisson would be the Evo of Gary Lees and John Tarrant. The times were close, only 6 seconds between them at the end of the opening day. And it would be another road rallying pair in 6th. Andy Davies and Max Freeman are taking that place, just a further 6 seconds back from Lees now. Martin Jones and Dan Colley would suffer with a little bit of traffic on day 1. Catching the car in front, they do end the day well with 7th overall and 2nd in Class C. It wasn't the best start to the event for Paul McKinnon and Rob Fagg. Power steering problems would lose them time, meaning they end the day with 8th overall and would have a lot to do on the second day if they wanted to try and top the results at the end of the event.
Flat right rough into left edge into jump 117.
In a leaderboard that was full of unexpected names, it would be a great 3rd place in Class C for Rory and Paul McCann, as the pair sit inside the top 10 with 9th overall in the Civic. And rounding out the top 10 at the end of the opening day were Melly Evans and Andrew Edwards, both in Class C for the pair as well. In a few places outside the top 10, it would be the lead in Class H for Stuart Eggleston and Brian Hodgson. The times actually identical to Evans at this stage. For Kex Walker and Danny Matthews, it would be the Class D lead. A good lead in the class would be theirs, the pair knowing the Druidel stage very well and using that to their advantage in the dark and the rain. In Class A, it would be Mark and Andrew Constantine. They make a great start in that class with a significant lead there. It would be bittersweet for Paul and Michael McAvoy. They survived the tricky Friday night stages, sadly to retire on day 2 on the very first stage. And it wouldn't be plain sailing for Matt Pearce and Jazz Rogers either. Thankfully their issues would be before the event, the engine blowing on the service van and causing them to take a later boat over to the island. Max Murray and Matty Owen couldn't have hoped for a better start. Their first rally and the pair lead the way in Class B in 54th place overall. It wouldn't be good news for John Indry and Matthew Smalley. They pull over and stop in stage 1, possibly with damage from hitting a rock on the Brandywell Cottage hairpin. The water would claim a few victims this weekend. David Higgs and Jamie Sparks would be one of those. Water causing the TR7 to stop later in the stage. And the Druidel water splash would also cause problems for Anthony Williams and Tim Gill in the Fiesta. They stop for a while until they can get the car started again, as do Brian Fraser and Fiona Moore, taking a little less time to get the car going, but still losing valuable time with the deep water. David Williams and Hugh Evans would be another to fall foul of the extra water on the stages, the Civic eventually having to be pushed off the stage after the splash. And it hadn't finished claiming victims just yet. Ben Commode Reader and Anthony Crellin would grind to a halt as they exit the water and try to get up the hill, having to roll the car back down to end the day over the limit. Di Roberts and Nathan Davies would get a little further in the stage, but the water would still be affecting them. Power steering and wiper issues ending their night early. So with day 1 complete, we see a very different set of results. Day 2 wasn't set to be quite as bad, but the conditions out there would still test the crews to the limit. On to day 2 then, 3 stages in the loop, each run 3 times. The rain may have eased for now, but there will still be plenty of standing water and slippery sections for the crews to negotiate. Apart from the weather, one of the main changes would be the lead. Now in the hands of Jamie Jukes and James Morgan, they move up to take that place by the end of stage 9. It would also be a place gained for Tristan Pye and Andrew Faulkner. They put in some good times to end the morning with 2nd place. Paul McKinnon and Rob Fagg start to make up for the issues on day 1, putting in some good times on the stages to move their way up the results now and into 3rd. They were still a minute off the lead, but it certainly looked like we were going to have a good battle for that win this weekend.
And then big water, 2 right plus long.
Some of the change at the top will be due to the drop down the results for Kevin Davies and Dylan Jenkins. They go off while pushing in the opening stage, damaging the side of the car, but were able to continue 4th place for now. Day 1 hadn't gone to plan for Andrew Dudgeon and Joe Dooley, but they were making up for it now, climbing the leaderboard and making their way up to 5th place now, setting some very fast times along the way. Things remain the same for Andy Davies and Max Freeman. They don't gain any time overall, but don't lose any either. Someone who does gain some time though would be Stuart Eggleston and Brian Hodgson. The historic Escort pair clearly getting to grips with the stages now and moving their way into 7th place overall. Things were still going well for Rory and Paul McCann. They gain a place in these stages to take 8th, now 2nd in the class behind Davies in the Escort up ahead. There will be a move into the top 10 for Simon Summers and Dilwyn John this morning. They end stage 9 with 9th place overall and move up to 3rd in the class as well. Ankex Walker and Danny Matthews also move inside the top 10 now, lying in 10th place overall and still leading the way in Class D. Second in that class and sitting just outside the top 10 were Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt. The Escort pair going well and putting in some good times now that the conditions were a little more favourable. And just behind them in the class results were Andy Bird and Plug Pullion. 3rd in the class, but a few places back on overall results in 19th overall. The conditions on day 1 hadn't agreed with Lee Edwards and Mike Roberts. They do start to put that right on day 2 though, with a move up the results into 21st place overall now. No change in the class for Mark and Andrew Constantine. The pair still lead the way in Class A, gaining a little more time on the overall results to lie in 22nd place for now. For Chris Hayes and Rick Sutcliffe, it would be a few places further back in 24th. The pair lying 2nd in Class H, though were some way off the lead in that class in 7th overall. The 5 of those podium places in the class would be closer though. with Martin Freestone and Guy Weaver just 26 seconds back in third at this stage of the event. For Ian Evans and Will Rogers, it would be second place in Class A, a little over a minute off the class lead, but holding a good advantage themselves in that second place. Sadly, Matt Pearce and Jez Rogers would retire early into day 2. They blame the engine on the car. Not a good weekend for the pair after doing exactly the same in the service van earlier in the week. The puncher on the Friday night stages wouldn't help the times for Jason Harris and Stuart Powell, but they were making things right now, moving up to take the lead in Class B at this stage. Second in that class would be Malcolm Davey and Paul Slingsby, 16 seconds back from the class lead after stage 9. And our overnight Class B leaders, Max Murray and Matty Owen, they have moved down the order now and into third, still going well, but with a bit more time to make up if they wanted the chance to win that class. This weekend we'll see role reversal for Kaylee and Nigel Cannell, changing seats and into a Nissan Micra. Kaylee showing the family's talent with third in Class A now. Sadly, we would lose Di Roberts and Nathan Davies for good this morning. Water causing a misfire and the pair deciding to pull over and not risk any major damage to the car. And we would also lose Martin Jones and Dan Colley. A similar fate for the pair as they limp the car through the morning's opening stage with a misfire. So with the first loop of the day complete, it's all changed at the top, and indeed the battle for the win this weekend really could be anyone's. On to the next loop of stages, a repeat of this morning's, and indeed a repeat of the performance for Jamie Jukes and James Morgan. They continue to lead the event now with just less than a minute lead. That lead would be over Paul McKinnon and Rob Fagg. The pair were still pushing to make up for the lost time on Friday night. The times were certainly good, but it might not be enough to challenge for that win. Kevin Davies and Dylan Jenkins were also making a move up the results again now. Still on the pace in the daylight, mixing with much more powerful and expensive machinery to round out those podium places for now. Andrew Dudgeon and Joe Dooley gained some time and move up another place in the results. Fourth place for now, with those podium places not looking too far away. Tristan Pye and Andrew Falconer would lose a little time. For them, it would be a move down to 5th. They were still looking good for a result here this weekend. The question is, what result? With all of the movement around them, there would be no change for Andy Davies and Max Freeman. They remain in 6th place overall and 5th in the popular Class E. And indeed, it would be a similar story for Stuart Eggleston and Brian Hodgson, still leading the way in Class H, plus remaining strong in 7th overall. And the same could be said for Rory and Paul McCann. They keep putting in those good times, enough to ensure they don't move down the leaderboard and remain in 8th place overall. There'll be a move up the results for Gordon Morrison and Michael Hendry. The first time on the island for the pair, and it was going well, apart from a spin on Friday night. 9th place for now. And rounding out the top 10 were Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt. They actually step up to take the lead in Class D with those times as well. That Newfound class win would be at the expense of Kex Walker and Danny Matthews, second in the class now. That class win slipping away from them a little now. For Len Jones and Dom James, it will be third in Class C. They gain a place in the class, but lose a place overall to end the morning with 13th. No change for Andy Bird and Plug Pullion. They remain third in Class D, just as they were over the morning loop. 19th place overall. The result this weekend was looking good for Mark and Andrew Constantine, as they keep hold of the lead in Class A. The lead there was significant, only retirement would change that result now. No change in Class H, it would still be second in that class for Chris Hayes and Rick Sutcliffe, the pair lying in 23rd overall. And they would still be chased down by Martin Freestone and Guy Weaver, third in the class and 26th place overall for the pair now. The new driver and co-driver partnership was working well for Jason Harris and Stuart Powell. They keep hold of that Class B lead now, but the place wasn't safe just yet. The gap back to second in that class wasn't too big. Malcolm Davey and Paul Slingsby hold that place now, and the class lead not out of reach for the pair in the final loop of stages. No change in third in that class. Max Murray and Matty Owen still holding on to that place. They do have a bit of an overshoot and take out a road sign, but they keep things going with minimal time loss. We will see a bit of a change in Class A. Kaylee and Nige Cannell ending this loop with second place in that class now. They just had a few more stages to try and keep that place secure. Their advantage in that second place would be 17 seconds over Patrick and Natalie Messer. It would only be a spin or puncture for those results to change. Day 2 sees a return to the stages for Dylan Parry and Dylan Griffith. Back out after retiring on day 1 with water issues in the electrics. They were putting in some good times, though they did spend a bit of time up a few banks and hedges. And we lose Jonathan Stepney and Aled Davies in this loop of stages. Things were going okay for their first visit to the island, but they hit a gate post and caused too much damage to continue after service. So with just the final loop of stages, the results at the top look like this. Still a couple more stages to change those results around. The pressure would certainly be on for some of the crews in the final miles. On to the final stages then, and it would be a victory for Ben Commode-Reader and Anthony Crellin. Finally finishing an event for the first time since starting rallying. They had plenty of problems, but they do get to the finish. Gavin Tyler Roberts and Martin Burns bring something different out on the stages. The project built to raise awareness for bowel cancer after a diagnosis for the driver. Thankfully all clear now and out there, raising awareness and having plenty of fun in the process. Sean and Emma Crowley make the journey over from Wales, and they would be glad to have made it through the event. They do have problems with the car cutting out, but the tyres were good when it was running okay. No change in that Class A fight. Patrick and Natalie Messer end the event with third place in the class in the Peugeot, 54th overall. They do miss out on second place by just 14 seconds. And taking that second place would be Kaylee and Nige Cannell. A great result for the pair in the new car this weekend. It would be only the 4th event together for husband and wife team Richard and Sarah Keane. They have a lot of problems through the weekend, but they do make it to the finish. Mark Ewan and Mark Runciman would be happy to get to the finish in the newly refurbished car. The Isle of Man would be a new event for the pair too, and one they won't forget anytime soon. For Max Murray and Matty Owen, it would be third in Class B to end the event, losing the lead after the first day, but a good result to take away from this challenging weekend. It would be the first closed road event for George Merrills and Carl Livingston. The times were good and they were certainly happy with their performance, ending the event with 42nd overall. Sadly, there was no challenging for the class win this time out for Malcolm Davey and Paul Slingsby. They would have to settle for second in Class B. A good result to end the event though. Chris Hellings and Glyn Thomas would be another new crew on the island. They would enjoy the fast flowing stages on day 2 and end the event with 36th place overall. No real problems for Jason Harris and Stuart Powell. They end the event with the Class B win. A well waterproofed car certainly helped them get through this weekend. Class H takes a last minute shake up with Martin Curzon and Rob Thomas stepping into third place in that class at the end of the event in 25th overall. But there will be no change to second in that class. Chris Hayes and Rick Sutcliffe happy to take that result this weekend after the class win was looking unlikely. It would be the Best Newcomer award for Phil Turner and Ryan Griffiths at the end of the event. They had a few intercom problems throughout the day, but they reached the end of the event with 20th overall. The Class A lead never really looked in doubt for Mark and Andrew Constantine. They reached the end of the event with the lead and, of course, take the class win. Things will remain the same for Andy Bird and Plug Pullion in the final loop of stages. They end the event with 3rd in Class D as well as 18th overall. There will be a few small issues for Rodri Evans and Tony Vart, another road rally crew showing what they were capable of against the more powerful cars. It will be a good end to the event for Lee Edwards and Mike Roberts. The self-prepared cars seem to be going well, putting in some good times and, importantly, having fun out there too. It would be a great result for Len Jones and Dom Jones on their first time here. They do come across an incident on one of the stages which caused them to back off and get to the finish. 3rd in Class C though was good to end the weekend. Kex Walker and Danny Matthews just missed out on a top 10 finish, ending the event with 11th place overall, as well as taking 2nd place in Class D in that ever sideways BMW. On to that top 10 though, and we will see Jim Munden and John Lee taking that 10th place in the Subaru. A good end to a tricky event. At one point the water coming in the car was so bad they had wet pace notes. For Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt, it would be a class win, a great end to the event for the Escort pair in 9th. Gordon Morrison and Michael Hendry would climb right the way up the results as the day went on, ending the event with 8th place overall, as well as 5th in Class E. A great run all weekend sees Rory and Paul McCann take 7th overall, clearly pushing hard on the stages, too hard sometimes, overshooting this junction close to the end of the final stage. Stuart Eggleston and Brian Hodgson put in some great times in the historic Escort to end the event with the class win, as well as taking 6th place overall at the finish. The times had remained constant for Andy Davies and Max Freeman over this weekend, and that drive nets them 5th place overall to end the event, as well as taking 4th in class. 3rd in that class, just ahead of them on the overall results, were Tristan Pye and Andrew Faulkner. A good end to the event for the Subaru pair in these tricky conditions this weekend. Sadly, we would lose Paul McKinnon and Rob Fagg. Prop shaft failure at the start of the final stage will see them having to retire from the win-chasing position. The battle in the podium places would be close. In fact, Kevin Davies and Dylan Jenkins would miss out on a place by just a single second. What could have been if it wasn't for hitting that post and damaging the car. Third, though, still a fantastic way to end the event. And that wasn't the only changes to the top of the results in these final stages. Andrew Dudgeon and Joe Dooley move up to get 2nd place overall and in the class at the end of the event. A great comeback drive. But the win this weekend would belong to Jamie Jukes and James Morgan. They had finally done it. From a big accident on Rally Isle of Man to finally getting a win on the island, and all with over a minute advantage at the end of the event. So confirmation of the results, Jukes finally getting the win he was so close to on a number of occasions in the past. A tricky event for all and one to end the season on a high.
Here, 40 for Rateable Crest Titans.